Welcome to Life in the Leadership Lane. I'm your host, Bruce Waller, where I am talking to leaders that are making a difference in the workplace and in our community. What did they do to get started, and what are they doing to stay there, to stay in that leadership lane? And I am talking to Leann Day today. Leann is a SPHR. She's a SHRM-SCP. She is the Vice President of Human Resources at Tandy Leather. And I am so excited to have you on the show. Hey, Leann.
Hi, Bruce. Thank you so much for having me. I am thrilled to be here.
I am excited to see you. I was actually reflecting, we've known each other for quite a few years, and I was reflecting the first time I met you, and I believe it was in a session at the HR Southwest conference a few years ago, and we were just like energized that morning. Do you remember that?
I do remember that, yes. And I had also met you. So it was one of those things. It was funny because we connected there, and then as I just continued to network, we would always see each other. And I'm like, Bruce, I promise I'm not following you around. I'm not stalking you.
Oh man, that's hilarious. It's like, when you buy a white car, you start seeing white cars everywhere.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Well, I'm excited to have you on the show today because we're going to talk leadership. We're going to talk a whole lot of things, but I want to start out the show. I would love for you to share just a brief highlight of Tandy Leather and how you serve your customers.
Yeah, so Tandy, we run our business out of 106 retail storefronts throughout the US, Canada, and we have one store in Spain. Tandy's been around for over 100 years. And so what's been really fun about this is every time I talk to people and they find out who I work with, they have a Tandy story. And so, a lot of times people had, they're like, oh, I remember I went to camp and I made a belt, or I, went to this, they had it in school and different things like that. So, it really is a legacy and a heritage brand. And so I love hearing people's Tandy story. What we have been doing since 2018 is really just kind of bringing the business up to speed. And have just had a wonderful time doing it. It's definitely been hard, but we have such a great team of leaders. Our employees are amazing, very, very passionate about the art of leather crafting. And so I am just really grateful for the opportunity to come in and be part of this organization. Really kind of putting a creative thumbprint on it. I know a lot of times people don't see HR as a creative outlet, but it very much is and can be, I think, in the right situation. So have been here going on 3 years now.
Wow. I didn't think about that. And I definitely want to get into that, a creative outlet when it relates to HR professionals. That's very interesting. I want to make a little side note for that.
Okay.
I want to get into that for sure. So, just to kind of get started, I love to just go back. I love to go back to where it started. And I would love for you to share the Leann Day story. Like, where did you grow up and how in the world did you get into HR?
Yeah, so I actually grew up in Dallas. Went to high school in Garland. I went to Stephen F. Austin. So definitely stayed in Texas. And I remember when I graduated, I went to go find my corporate job, if you will. And I'll be honest with you, I had no idea what I was going to do. I was just looking for a job. But the one thing that I knew that I did want to do was I knew that I wanted to go to work for EDS, which was Ross Perot's company. It took me a year to land a position there. And I knew that once I could get my foot in the door, it would give me an opportunity just to kind of grow in whatever way that whatever forum. And so I had an opportunity to go into the leadership development group. And, so HR kind of found me, and I came into HR backwards. So most people come into HR on the administrative side. Nope, I came in on the strategic side, on the development side, and then grew into, the kind of this full scope. So it's one of those things that HR kind of found me. At the time, there wasn't, like HR management programs and things like that you could do throughout college. So yeah, and again, I think it takes a really special kind of person to be able to, kind of continue to move forward within HR. It certainly is not for the faint of heart. Um, so I think you just kind of continue to evolve a little bit and find your lane within HR, because that's what's so exciting about it though, is there are so many different venues that you can go down. You can go down the benefits path, the recruiting, the development, the employee relations side. So I think that's kind of what makes it a little fun as well.
That's interesting. I love, by the way, the find your lane quote in
Yeah,
there. I love
see?
that. That means a lot to my heart. I was thinking, as you're talking about that, I was thinking about when I took my HR certification, and I
Mhm.
didn't realize what you're talking about, all the different lanes there
Yes.
are in HR. Because when I took the certification, I remember talking about, we're talking about business strategy, we're talking about workforce planning, benefits, risk management, compensation. I mean, you just go on and on and on, talk about employee relations, recruiting.
Right.
And so there's so much, and I had no idea till I really got involved. I'm just curious, do you have like a favorite? I mean, you said you kind of gravitated towards the strategic.
Mhm.
Is there a favorite area that you enjoy most?
It's kind of, I think I enjoy all of them for different reasons. I think the thing that is closest to my heart though is leadership and organizational development, because it is all about people and,
Mm.
pushing them forward and challenging and how do you grow? So again, that's probably closest to my heart. Um, but again, I mean, I think employee relations is, difficult and challenging as that can be sometimes. It really gives you an opportunity to connect and help people, as well as kind of balancing, protecting the organization. Compensation is kind of more of that analytical piece. Also kind of that recognition and rewards. I think one area for me that has become far more exciting and dynamic, though, is benefits.
Mm.
I remember when I first came in, benefits, you just kind of check the box, you do the renewals every year. And boy, has that really, really shifted. So it really also benefits, I think, gives you an opportunity to impact the bottom line, but also to help your employees from a wellness perspective and in a larger scope, not just their health, but their spiritual, their financial, and their engagement at work. And boy, has 2020 really taught us that too.
Oh man, that is a great point. Benefits, and I've talked to a lot of different guests that have talked about wellness. I remember Danny Bogard, the director of HR at Warren, talked about thinking about your financial, and
Yes.
we really don't talk about that enough.
Yeah.
And so I think you hit on something there. Benefit, very interesting, very interesting.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. So you found that job, you found that corporate job,
Uh-huh.
you landed at EDS, and today you serve as a VP of HR. So
Mhm.
I mean, it's taken you a while to get to where you are. Was there
Yes.
like a moment when you found your lane, when you found that I love what I do, I've found it, I'm enjoying it, and I'm going to keep on it? Was there a moment, or were there lots of little moments that led to that?
I think there were probably lots of little moments along the way. And, I spent the first half of my career in Fortune 500 companies, really big companies. And so you have a tendency to really kind of be a singular focus.
Mm.
And then I went into a smaller company and to startups, and I've transcended in different industries as well. And I always did that though in the top HR leadership role. And once I got into that top HR leadership role and really kind of had that full spectrum of responsibility, that's when I went, oh, this is where I belong. This is my
Mm.
thing. And so honestly, that probably really, really clicked for me probably about 8 years ago. And just continue to strive to, have that full scope of impact in the role.
Mm. That is
Yeah,
fantastic.
so I do feel like a lot of things that I did up until that point, though, led me to exactly where I am today.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, Bruce, there's been a lot of no's. There's been a lot of things that didn't work. There's been so much learning along the way, though.
Okay, so a lot of no's. I want to talk about that for a second because I kind of have a love-hate relationship with failure.
Yes, yes.
So I love it because I know I'm going to be better for it, but I hate it because I want it to be yes. Talk more about that. What's your relationship with that? A lot of people, I think a lot of people, even people listening today, they may be in that situation where, you know what, they're trying to get to a certain point and they're being told no, or something's blocking them. What do you have to say about that, just based on, what you went through?
Yeah, I mean, I did a job search, and I got a lot of no's along the way. And I tried to really stay positive and going, okay, this is just the no is leading me to the right yes. And so I tried to reframe my mindset, and I also use that at work as well. So if there's something that I've identified, there's a problem, and I go, okay, we need to fix this, and this is what I think we need to do. It's not always going to be a yes, and so it's like, okay, well, it's just a no right now, and what do I need to do differently and better to adjust that to get to the yes? So a lot of times I think there are things that this is really hard for me. I see things that can be impactful, but it's also not the right time, or it needs to come in a different order because they're all interconnected. So those no's and those risks that you take, I think, is what creates you as a person. And you don't learn something from yes. And so don't be afraid of that failure and keep pushing through the no. Be patient and be persistent.
I remember early in my career, I was looking at a potential promotion to a line manager. I was a supervisor at the time, and I remember the business leader in that division wanted to hire me, but there was someone higher up that wanted to hire someone different, and they hired the different person. I remember being bummed out about that. But when I looked back just a few years later, I realized I was not ready for that. I didn't understand a lot of the risk management pieces of the job at the time. And so it actually led me a different route, a different path.
Right.
And it's led me to the path I am today. So, sometimes that no can also, hey, there's a reason why. It's going to lead you to something even better.
Right. It's a redirection, or it's an affirmation that you need to work harder at that thing. Don't just give up because you get a no the first time. Have that patience, have that persistence. If that's something that you're really, really passionate about, and go, great, how can I be better? What can I do differently?
Oh, man.
And that's how that really applies also to HR as well, because it just continues to evolve. And, the status quo, you got to keep pushing and challenging it.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about leadership in particular. We're 2021. Thank goodness 2020 is long gone.
Yes.
I have a couple of questions for you, and I'm just going to ask you, number one, how would you define leadership? And number two, what have you seen change in particular in HR over the last, 8 years?
Oh my goodness. I think that, for me, leadership is about humility. Number one is about humility. I don't have all the answers. And it's about staying curious, because I believe that 1 + 1 = 3. I think we can, and I'm bad at math. But
that's fantastic. 1 + 1 = 3. By the way, if you're listening to this right now, get your pen out, get your journal out, because there is some gold here. Go ahead.
Yeah. So 1 + 1 = 3. I believe that we can all come up with something better than what we can individually. So for me, that is really what leadership is about, is humility, being open, being curious, asking questions, listening, and then all of us working together to come up with something that is exponentially better.
Mhm.
And, you know, I have to tell you, I think in the last 8 years, you know, HR has definitely, you know, I think we used to just kind of be seen as this administrative function. You process payroll, you did employee files, you did paperwork, and it has definitely shifted to truly become a strategic partner. Um,
Mm.
and I think as an HR leader, you have to bring that to the table. And you know, that is where you have to be patient, you have to be persistent, you have to do your homework, you have to talk the language of the CEO. And you know, you have to, what I call is to have an ear, not necessarily always a voice. And what I mean
Mm.
by that is, you know, when organizations are making huge business decisions, strategic business decisions, I want to have a seat at the table. And I want to be able to listen to understand for context around what was the discussion, what were the heated topics, what almost was the decision, but then it went the other direction. Because then when I have that ear, I can raise my hand to go, hey, let's think about this from a people perspective. And these are the things you need to consider. And here's why. And here's my recommendation. I don't just raise my hand. I make a recommendation and I give options. And, you know, so I think when you come to the table with that type of a viewpoint and willingness and knowledge, and that also means you have to understand the business.
Mm.
And that's the other thing when I mean by having an ear, you have to understand the business. And then you can raise your hand and go, yeah, I also have a voice. And I think that's really how HR has shifted probably in the last 8 to 10 years.
Oh man, there's so much here, Leann. This is fantastic. First of all, the recommendation versus giving options.
Yes.
What a great point. I had a leader one time. Every time I would come in, I would always have a couple of options to share because he trained me that don't just bring me the problem.
Yeah. Nope.
I need to know give me some solutions. And
Right.
I love that. You know, when I mentioned earlier, taking the HR certification, I remember Barbara Hoover, the very first thing she said in class was, you have to know the business.
Yes, you
You have
have
to know the
to.
business. So tell me a little bit about that. I mean, you spend time trying to understand the business. So what do you mean by knowing the business, just for the listeners out there? What can they
Yeah.
do to better know the business?
You know, it is, you got to roll up your sleeves. You got to go ask questions. You got to, you know, stand shoulder to shoulder with everyone and just go, you know, because I will tell you, there are things that I'm like, I have no idea what you just said, but I raise my hand and I go, what does that mean? You know, if
Mm.
someone uses an acronym that you don't know, ask them, what does that mean? Can you explain this to me? You know, so a lot of it truly is that curiosity and being willing to come in and ask those questions and dig in. And it's on the numbers too. You know, what drives your business?
Mm.
Is it sales? You know, and how do you get to that? Understand the marketing, understand your product. You know, so again, it is truly about being curious and not being afraid. And that's coming back to that no. If someone tells you no, it's like, okay, I'll go research it on my own, or I'll go ask someone else. Um, but part of that too is making sure that, you know, I seek out roles that the organization sees HR as a strategic partner.
Mm.
And you know, if you're in an organization that it doesn't, then you have a whole bunch of extra work to do to build that credibility. And again, you got to come back, you got to ask those questions, and you don't always have to go to the top leader. Go to the people that are doing the job. And then you will gradually be able to have a knowledgeable conversation, and really truly understand what's going on and how you can impact that from an HR perspective.
That is so good. As I'm listening to you share this incredible wisdom, I'm curious. So, you know, there's probably a lot of people in your organization wanting to grow. How do
Mhm.
you coach people up? I mean, you've been coached up. This is incredible advice. I mean, we're going to share this with the masses, but how in your organization do you coach people up to be better? I mean, what are some different things or tips that you give them to try to work on their own development?
Yeah, I am a huge advocate of strengths.
Mm.
And of course, my top strength is positivity. So I'm always
Of
going
course
to,
it is.
I know, right?
You
So I'm
are a very
always,
positive person. I love that. Okay.
yeah. So
And now,
I'm
is
always
that top
that
strengths
optimist.
in like a strengths finder or
Yes,
a, okay, got it.
yes.
Okay.
And, so we are using this within our organization because I think, when I started out in HR and this leadership development, it was always about, well, what are the things you need to work on developmentally, and you just work on that, and not really identifying and going, what are you just naturally good at? What are you interested in? What are you passionate about? And so when I'm coaching people up, I want to know, what is that thing they're just naturally good at? And let's align what they're doing in the company and their development along those lines. So it is kind of taking that positive skew and fitting it together from a puzzle perspective too, because just because I'm not good at something doesn't mean I can't be good at it. But it also creates that awareness around, well, if this is what I'm good at, what are you good at? And, I'm bad at math. And so I go seek out the person that's good at math. And I go, can you help me with this? Because 1 + 1 = 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, so it is about aligning those types of things and encouraging people to go, no, because it's such a different conversation whenever you say, okay, well, you're really good at this thing. How do you leverage that? How do you use that in your job every day? Who else can you help out with that? That's very motivating and different for people, right? Feels very different than, well, you're not very good at this. And so you just need to keep going, working on that thing. And again, not to say that you aren't always working, you absolutely are. But it takes on a different positive, I think. And the other thing when I'm coaching people, I will listen, asking a lot of questions. And then also letting them know that it is okay to fail. The expectation, depending on what you're working on, the expectation is you don't master it the first time. We always use this analogy. If you wanted to go learn how to play baseball, would you just go read a book and then go be good at baseball? No, you wouldn't. To be good at baseball, you're going to have to probably read a book. You're going to have to go practice. You're probably going to need a coach. Are you always going to hit home runs? No, you're going to strike out a lot, aren't you? But as you do all of those pieces, that's how you get better at something. So I always like to use that analogy in work and leadership. Yeah, you're going to fail sometimes. Learn from a failure. Don't keep making the same mistakes, and continue to work and improve. You got to practice. It takes practice.
Yeah, I love that. Okay to fail culture.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. I was, as you were talking about reading a book about playing baseball, I was thinking about something John Maxwell shared a while back, and he said it's all about perspective. And I was thinking about your positivity, and I was talking about this, young boy that he was going to become the greatest home run hitter in the history of the world. And so he took this ball and he threw it up and he swung and he missed it. And he said, oh, strike one. And then he threw it up and he missed it again, strike two, and he missed it, strike three. And you would think that he's just going to put the bat down and just, walk off and not failed. But instead he said, let me introduce you to the greatest pitcher of all times. It struck him out. So no, that's fantastic. I love you're a great encourager, and I just absolutely love that. I was reading, one of the things I really enjoy about interviewing different people that are really leading and making a difference. I love like reading their LinkedIn, and I noticed you have a lot of LinkedIn recommendations, a lot of just very kind and positive things said about your leadership. And as I'm reading it all, I'm like, man, she is just driven. I'm just curious, what drives you as a leader?
You know, I just think I have a passion for helping people and in whatever capacity that may be. You know, in HR, sometimes we have to have really hard conversations.
Mm,
And but also, I think if you avoid having the hard conversation, you're doing that person a disservice because maybe no one has ever told them this. But I don't think the hard conversation has to be a, a put down or anything. I absolutely believe in having conversations with dignity and respect. They're in a kind way, but is very much to the point. So, you know, that's one end of the spectrum. And then the other end of the spectrum is, oh my gosh, when I see somebody that comes in and they've grown and they've learned and they've practiced and they pushed and they've developed and we get to promote them. It is so exciting. It is so fun. And it, you know, it's just about those little bitty things along the way that I think just help me to get up every day and just go, all right, I am here. I'm going to do the best that I can.
I love that. Oh, that's fantastic. I'm curious, you know, first of all, there's nothing better than seeing someone that has had success that you've been a
Mhm.
part of. I mean, I don't think there's anything better than it gives you so much joy. So I
Yes.
can definitely relate to that. And I can see that, you know, how that would, how that would impact you as a leader. I'm curious. One of the things that, you mentioned though, was, having hard conversations.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the areas that I've seen people struggle with. I can't say the most, but I see it as a hot topic. Is many times we get in these situations and we know something needs to be said, but we're afraid to say it
Yes.
because we think it might hurt their feelings or they're going to take it the wrong way. Or how can we get better? We didn't really talk about any of this, but
Mhm.
I'm just curious from you. I mean, this is part of it. This is part of being in that leadership
Right.
lane, is being able to have those conversations. What are some, I don't know, what are a couple of, maybe a tip or a couple of tips you would share that would help people that are listening?
Yeah. You know, I think what I do is when I'm going to have a difficult conversation, I prepare for it.
Mm,
I actually write down on a post-it note the key topics or the key points that I need to make. You know, because sometimes if nobody has ever heard this or no one has told them, they're going to deflect
mm,
and they're going to go, well, no, they did this. And I'm like, nope, we're talking about you. This conversation is about you. And when you frame it in that way, it feels more special,
mm.
honestly. But I think when you are clear and articulate and you have those things down that you need to cover, that you need to say, it makes it a lot easier. But I will tell you, I've been doing this a really long time, and no difficult conversation is ever easy. But you do have to prepare for it. And, you know, I think when you generally care about people
Mm.
and you are coming from a place of kindness, dignity, and respect, no matter who they are, I think people feel that and they sense that, especially when you speak from the heart. I know that a lot of times you can get kind of in HR, we can get kind of rigid and technical. And
Mm.
sometimes we have to be. But I think that's kind of the last course of action is how would you want someone to talk to you about this? Um, so that's what I do. I prepare for the conversation. I really think about how might this person feel? And I give them an opportunity to speak as well and listen to what they're saying. And I come in with an open mind. And, you know, because again, they may have a very different viewpoint that I hadn't considered or thought of. And, you know, so I think sometimes too in HR, we can always get caught up in being right. Um, you know, so I think balancing that out a little bit where you can.
Love that. I love the preparation first and foremost. We've got to
Yes.
prepare for that. We got to prepare. And I love how you shared, you know, the angle you're coming at it from, and
Right.
that's from kindness and respect, and then keeping an open mind because you know there may be something you're not aware of. that you'll find out during that conversation. And
Right.
so, no, listen, this is going to help a lot of people. I'm telling you,
I hope so.
this is one of the big, I think this is the big topic. And I think this is a big area where people are like, man, I want to have that conversation. I'm not sure how to do that. And I think this will help. You know, one of the things that I've talked about recently in different HR conferences I've been speaking about is the importance of having, developing influence in the workplace. And I'm curious, I mean, so you're at the table, you're sitting, you have a front row seat to the CEO and leadership. How do you, or what are some things people can do? And you've shared a lot of this already, but to just develop more influence,
Right.
to get buy-in. Maybe it's a buy-in on, maybe there's something that they see that needs to be done, or maybe there's someone they want to hire, or maybe maybe they need a promotion. What are some things that they can do to develop more influence in the workplace? You got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, when I think of influence, because that's it can mean a lot of things to different people. And the way that I personally think about it is influence is accountability without direct responsibility.
Accountability. I'm going to say, let's say that again, accountability without direct responsibility.
Right. So I can't go tell people what to do because I'm ultimately not responsible for it. These people, there are people in the organization, they don't work directly for me. And so but I have overall accountability for how the organization moves forward, what HR looks like. How do we touch people? How do we recruit? How do we bring new talent in? Now I'm responsible for that, but there are aspects of the company, once I get them in here, I have no responsibility for them, but I still have accountability. And, so I think it is about understanding the business. So when you come in, it's like I'm coming in from a different viewpoint. And I'm asking, I'm having conversations, and maybe I'm having those difficult conversations too, right? And I've prepared for that difficult conversation. And sometimes I'm coming in with data. Yes, I will tell you, HR probably touches the top 5 bottom line items.
Okay.
When you think of benefits, when you think of payroll, that's always number 1, right?
Yes. We all want to get paid. That's right.
Another one is, and it's definitely not a line item on the balance sheet, but it is turnover. Turnover is a huge cost. So when I come in with data and I go, hey, I think we need to do this. It's going to cost this much. And here's the outcome that's going to happen and when it's going to happen. So again, part of it is understanding the business, being prepared, doing your homework. And if somebody says no, you say, okay, why? Help me understand why. And then you go back and you come at it again. If it is something that you really believe in, you're going to keep coming at it. You will keep coming at it. So I think that kind of comes back to that, take the risk. It's okay to fail. Keep looking for the right yes. And just, influence again is, I think it's kind of a mindset a little bit. Is again, continuing to have that humility and curiosity when you come at a problem or a situation or a person.
So good. Oh, so good. I love how you frame that though, because I think at the end of the day, you're right on, because you said you're coming at it from a viewpoint of understanding the business. So understanding the business could also mean, does it align with the mission, the vision, the values of the organization, some of the different areas you're focused on for your objectives, right? Maybe like in our company, it would be around revenue, profit, quality, safety. So if you're bringing something from that angle, all of a sudden people are probably going to be more likely to listen than something that may not be part of that. True?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
probably
man.
one of the, some of those are easier to go to, kind of the hard factual things. I'm a huge culture advocate.
Hmm.
And, for me, culture is everything. And I believe that people want to work in a company that they're proud of, that they're engaged in. And boy, has 2020 really challenged our engagement for sure. And so how do you create that culture? To me, culture is the ultimate influencer. And that's hard and it takes time. And it's not just about words, it's about your actions. And so how do you as an organization, how do you as an individual, as a leader, as an individual employee, how do you demonstrate that culture on a daily basis?
Yeah. And as you talk about culture, and that's a big, big hot topic too.
Mhm.
And that's, you can't build culture in a day, can you? I mean, that
No,
takes
no,
a while, right? And
it
not
does.
only does it take a while, it takes a team.
Yeah, yeah. And it takes everybody. It's not like, oh, I just go put these, words on a wall and then boom, we have a culture. It takes every employee in the organization to understand what does that mean? Because people believe what you say, not what you do.
Mm,
Or no, they believe what you do, not what you say. I had that
right.
back.
Yeah. Right.
And so then once they start to see what you're demonstrating through your behaviors every day, then they do believe more of what you say. And that's why it takes such a long time.
Let me ask you this before I leave this, because I think culture is another area that's really important, and a lot of people are trying to figure out how do we continue to build that, because there's so many times you get roadblocks
Yeah,
on, hey, we've got it on our walls, but yet it's time to make a decision. That decision doesn't align with what's on the wall.
right.
What are share just maybe one or two things that you've been able to do, or something, maybe it's something in your everyday, or what is something you do to continue to try to build culture
Right.
in your organization?
I think that it has certainly taken us a while to get here, but what we did was go in and said, what are our guiding principles? What are those fundamental things that we believe as an organization are most important for us?
Hmm.
And boy, did we had some spirited conversations about what it needed to be and all this other stuff. And then once we did that, we said, okay, next level of the organization, what do you think about this? And, does this ring true for you? And then they were like, yeah. And so it's this continual rollout. But now what we've started to do is connecting.
Mm,
So going, okay, these are guiding principles, and it's a slow introduction. I don't expect people just to check the box and immediately get it.
right.
And, so a lot of times we'll open meetings up and I'll go, okay, what guiding principle did you demonstrate today? How did you do it? What did it look like? Or which one are you struggling with? It's not about always being perfect. It is about, what? I am really having a hard time being curious today.
Mm,
And so again, creating that environment that, because it's not this, it's not always kind of this black and white. It is, yeah, this is hard. We're struggling with this. And sometimes as an organization, you have to make hard decisions, but it's like, what? We're going to act with integrity. And yeah, we got to make a hard decision around that. And just raising your hand and going, this was hard. And it's okay for it to be hard. It's not always easy.
yeah, you wouldn't think about this being really creative, but it really is a creative way. You talked about creative
Yep.
in HR earlier, and that's just starting a meeting about something to align with a guiding principle or
Yeah.
values of the organization.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Oh man, this is so good. We could go on for days
I
talking about this.
know.
Would
I always
be
love talking to you, Bruce.
Oh, and I love talking to you too. Here's what I want to know. It seems to be a common thread for different leaders that have really made impact in their
Mm.
organizations, that they talk about people that maybe helped them along the way. Were there any mentors that have helped you in your career that you want to share? And then also, do you mentor anybody today?
You know, so thank you to all the bad bosses that I've had along the way. And you know, I don't really like to say bad bosses. You know, it is
Yeah.
just, I have certainly sometimes learned more from those leaders that I didn't align with as much than with the ones that I did.
Mhm.
Um, but they also challenged me. They pushed me, and I was like, okay. Um, but I have to tell you, Bruce, I think I'm inspired um, by just, I think people in general that I come in
Mm.
contact with. You know, and it doesn't have to be like a kind of a formal type of thing.
Mhm.
It is, and again, I think it's having that open-mindedness and that curiosity to go, what can I learn from you today? And you know, so again, it's just, I don't want to limit it to one person.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, so I think again, I am inspired by people in general.
I love that. As a matter of fact, I call these different interviews that I have, or anytime I meet someone for coffee or for
Mhm.
lunch, I call them my growth day because
Oh,
I
nice.
want to, I want to learn from them. You know, we have a
Yes.
mutual friend, Rhonda McCullough, and
Yes.
I was meeting with her one day, and I'm like, hey, I want to grow. I want to learn from her, or any, you know, HR Southwest conference or a Dallas
Yes.
HR meeting or wherever. Every time we have those interactions, so I can relate to what you're saying there is that, hey, I'm here to like, I want to like, hey, what are you learning that I should learn? And then next thing you know, we grow from there.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I see these things that, you know, you're really good at, and like Seth is really good at, and, you know, Rhonda is really, I mean, there's people, even just in my daily interactions, you know, the guy that works in my building, you know, just like, you're really good at that. How do you do that? And, you know, so try to pick some of that up along the way.
I love that. Oh my gosh, this is so inspiring. This is so great. You know, we've been talking a lot about leading your team,
Mhm.
but I want to talk about leading Leann. And I would love for you if you could share with the listeners and the viewers. Do you have like a practice or a daily discipline
Mhm.
that you do every day that keeps you on track?
You know, I will tell you that um, one of the things that I have worked into my routine has actually been yoga and meditation. Yes, I
Oh,
actually, to the point that I went and became a certified yoga instructor. And next to taking the SPHR, that was one of the hardest things I've ever done.
wow. Okay. So I can relate to that. That's hard.
Yeah, and you know, it wasn't the physical yoga. It was learning how to teach yoga and to create a yoga flow and things like that. But it really helped to center me, to calm my mind down, and you know, to acknowledge all the thoughts that we have, and to go, oh, look, I'm mad about that, I'm upset about this, I'm overwhelmed by this, and making it okay to raise your hand and go, I'm a little overwhelmed right now, and to ask for help. You know, so that yoga and that meditation starting my day out really gives me that centering and that grounding. Because as you know, Bruce, in HR, you think you go in. So the next thing I do is I try to plan my day. And sometimes my day is completely rearranged for me. And, you know, so uh, just making sure that I just kind of go, okay, it's going to be all right. I'm going to get through this, and I'm going to get through this. And, you know, so that yoga and that meditation has really, really helped me. And then again, I think just planning. Um, and then also, I think just going, okay, what can I learn today? Who can I learn from? Who can I help?
Mm.
Um, and then, you know, kind of closing my day out with going, you know what? I did the very best that I could today. That doesn't always mean though, it went well.
Right.
There were
Right.
some days that there were failures, and it was like, all right, you know what? I did my very best. How can I do it better next time? And making that okay, to be able, you know, so that you can just lay down and put your head on the pillow at the end of the day and sleep well.
I've heard a lot about mindfulness. I'm
Yes.
wondering on the yoga, is that a daily, are you doing that every day now? I mean, you become an instructor. Are you doing it every day yourself, or is that a 3 days a week, or what's that look
It
like?
is. So it's a 2 to 3 days a week.
Okay.
And then, it kind of balances out with other type of, just physical exercise is really important for me.
I will tell you, that's one thing I've noticed is that everyone has a discipline. Like, so you have a system, and that's really what it's all about. It's like,
Right.
okay, maybe it's not yoga, maybe it's a gratitude journal, or maybe it's running or whatever, but everybody has something they are doing that's a common practice. And I think that's the most important thing is it helps us be, I love that. Oh man,
Yeah.
that is so good. Well, let me ask you this before we pivot to, it's time to accelerate to wind down the show. I always like to ask, do you have any advice that you were given at one point in your career, or maybe it was from a family or friend? It was so good, you find yourself sharing with others.
I do. And I may have shared this with you. I don't remember during some of our wonderful conversations. I had a manager really early in my career, and this was very profound. And they said, Leann, what do you want your legacy to be? I was like, wow, I have no idea. And, so when you think about how you behave every day as an individual, as a human, as an HR professional, in your personal life, in your professional life, when you understand kind of how do you want your legacy, what do you want your legacy to be? How do you want people to think of you currently and remember you afterwards? That's once you answer that question, a lot of everything else you do is easy.
That is so good. Oh
Yeah.
man, that is so good. That is all about the why.
Yes.
That is all
Yeah.
about the why. I love that. I just finished the book, Start With Why. And
Yeah.
I immediately went to that. That is really good. And that's going to help a lot of people think about that. What do you want your legacy to be as you are thinking about your everyday?
Right.
What was that? Maybe today, what do you want it to look like at the end of the day, or the end of the week, or the end of the
Right.
month, or your career? And so that is absolutely terrific, and I appreciate you sharing that. Well, let's go ahead and move to, it's time to accelerate. I'm just going to ask you a few fun questions as we kind of wind down. And so here's the first question: book or podcast?
I have to tell you, Bruce, I'm a traditional book person. I want to hold the book. I've tried the Kindle, I've tried the iPad. I got to hold the book.
I love that. You got to fold those pages. You got to mark.
I'm going to write notes in it. Yeah.
Have you had any books over the last year or so that you thought you really enjoyed that you want to share?
You know what? I did. I had to do a little book report as part of my yoga instructor training. And it is it's a book called Mindfulness.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll put that in the show notes. If anybody wants to check out that book, that might be helpful.
It's not a very big book, but it's pretty intense. And so there's just so much in there that I keep going back to.
That is absolutely terrific. I will definitely put that, Kim Zoller was a past guest on our show, and she talked about the importance of mindfulness. And ever since she talked about that, I've been hearing more and more and more. It's almost like I mentioned before, that frequency illusion effect. You see it once and then you start seeing it everywhere.
Yes.
And so appreciate you sharing that. I'll put that in there. Let me ask you something. I mean, 2020 was hard.
Woo.
What are you most grateful for today?
I am actually grateful for the opportunity that I had in 2020, that while it was forced, and boy, was it hard, to do a personal inventory and a self-evaluation and reflection just on things that maybe were not in my purview. I was not aware of it, not because I didn't want to be, I just didn't know. And really had some great, difficult conversations and are still doing that. And, so it's just been getting comfortable with really being uncomfortable. And that's been okay. That's been okay. There's definitely been a lot of tears. There's been some tears, And there's also been a lot of laughter.
Oh, that's terrific.
Yeah.
I've shared, I do a presentation called Great Leaders Are Grateful Leaders.
Mhm.
And one of the things I shared was I remember having a hard day, many hard days, but the one in
Right.
particular, it was just heavy. It was heavy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just got out a piece of paper and I started writing down all the things I was grateful for. And I filled up that entire sheet of paper, and it was amazing how much better I felt. I was like, are you kidding me? Look at all the
Oh,
things that I have. I'm so grateful.
yes.
And so I like to share. So I appreciate you sharing that. 2021 ahead though. I mean, so like, what are you excited most about?
Ooh, I am excited about potential the opportunity just to again start to hopefully get to network in person.
Yeah.
And to be able to, boy, do I want to be able to shake hands with people and to be able to give people hugs again. And so I think that's what I'm really looking forward to. But I think also continuing to all those things that I learned and those things that I'm grateful for, is to be able to continue to pull that forward and not lose sight of those things. One of the things that I learned in yoga is contentment. And so, I think when you think of contentment, you think of it as a bad thing. But the way that you need to think about it is there's not always going to be highs and peaks, and there's not always going to be lows. And so when you have that mindset of contentment, it is, okay, I know I'm going to appreciate and be grateful for when things are going really well. And I'm going to know they're not going to last forever. And then whenever maybe things are at a low, I'm going to go, you know what? This is hard. What can I take from this? And I know I'm not going to be here forever as well. So it's that contentment of kind of going through the peaks and the valleys.
Oh man, that is so good. Oh man, write that down. People are going to have to listen to this session one more time. There's so much good here. Let me ask you this. What energizes you?
I think the opportunity just to learn and to meet new people. I am motivated by meeting new people and helping them out. I think just coming in and knowing that I've done my very best at the end of each day.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, people. It's all about people, isn't it?
It is.
I love it. Okay. So here's the final question. And this is one of my favorite questions to ask. And so here it is. So Leann, she's 10 years older. She's knocking at your door right now, and you're going to go answer that door. What is she going to tell you?
I am 10 years older. Take the risk. Take the risk. Be afraid. Don't be afraid to fail. And always find an opportunity to say yes.
That's so good. Oh my gosh. Leann, you are definitely driving in the leadership lane. I appreciate you being on so much. If someone wanted to just connect with you or learn more about you, how would be the best way for them to connect?
Actually connecting with me on LinkedIn. Okay. So it is, it's super easy. It's just Leann Day. So please connect with me. I would love to help any way that I can, share what I've learned along the way, connect you with other people. If, I'm maybe not the best person, I am definitely all about connecting. And yeah, so that's how you get a hold of me. You are a great connector. This has been so inspiring, and I appreciate you just coming on and just sharing your wisdom, your perspective. I know I am confident it's going to help a lot of people that are listening and watching the show, either validate that they're in the leadership lane, or B, maybe make that lane change, take that risk that you talked about today. Yes. So I'm so grateful for you. And more importantly, I'm grateful for our friendship. So appreciate you being on today, my friend. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Bruce, for the invitation. And also just for everything that you do. You so inspire me, and just, your tenacity to continue to get out in front of people, to connect people, to share your, what you've learned and your message in so many different forums. So you go, Bruce.
Appreciate you, my friend. I cannot wait to share this. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, bye.